everyone, we are Greg and Jess of Drifter Journey. We have been in our van for just over 3 years. This is actually our second van. So our first van we had for about 2.5 years. It was professionally built, and then we decided that we wanted to try to build one our own, and this is it. Welcome to the inside of our van. So we've got the kitchen, dining room, bed, kind of all in the same spot. So you'll notice that one of the first things that's different about our van is that we have all steel tube welded construction for our cabinets. And the reason that we did that is because it was that way on our first van, and we really enjoyed the structural integrity of it, the lightweightness of it. We never worried about driving over rough roads and feeling like our whole house is falling apart. So we actually learned to weld so that we could do this build this way. The front panels of our cabinets are all PVC plastic with a vinyl coating, so again, really lightweight. The whole purpose of our build is functionality, so we're going for function over form. Speaking of the upper cabinets, these ones, the front two, we just use these simple sash locks, which is typically seen on a window. You can buy these at Lowe's. They're on a gas strut, so they stay open on their own. This is all of our kitchen stuff, some cooking. This is all of our like hygiene, toiletries, what have you. And oh, I'll mention these. These are really cool. We wanted under cabinet lighting because when you're standing here cooking, you actually end up shading what you're looking at because the lights are behind you. So we bought these little lights, and they're really bright and they're magnetic, so they happen to stick to the steel, which is really cool. And like I mentioned before, this is our second van. So some of the main things that we changed between the first van and the second van is going to be in the kitchen area. We put in a bigger fridge, so this is twice as big as the first one that we had, and it just makes a huge difference for 2 people traveling in a van. Another thing that we changed is the counter height itself. So our last van had a counter that was probably about 3 inches shorter, and that was kind of, making it taller wasn't intentional. We just had to make it taller because of the bigger fridge, but it kind of worked out so that we don't have to bend over as much. We have a dual burner sink combo cooktop, so it is a pretty small sink, and it's a small cooking area, but we're pretty simple eaters. We don't tend to cook very fancy meals, so it works for us, and then it stows away nice and clean and compact when we're not using it. And then lastly, in the kitchen area, we've got the pantry. So this is basically everything that we have for cooking. We've got dishes, spices, and down here we have extra food and an immersion blender and things like that. I highly recommend putting all of your food in some kind of plastic thing so that you avoid having mice. So we decided to try van life because we kind of got tired of the 9-to-5. We actually were working for a really great company at the time. We got 5 weeks of vacation a year. We were making tons of money, but it just didn't really feel like enough still. We weren't very fulfilled, and van life was a really tangible solution to being able to travel more and not have to make as much money. So when we talked about, how can we travel more and do more with our lives, it really came down to how do we afford a simpler lifestyle. We found that living in the van, we only need about $24,000 a year or so, and that's traveling full-time. We live in it full-time. We're pretty frugal, but we will, get a little spendy when there's stuff that we want to do. We definitely don't, short ourselves on anything during the experience. So for us, that's why we decided to try it in the first place. We actually weren't sure we were going to like it, so we initially only saved up 2 years of living expenses to try out the lifestyle, figuring that if we didn't enjoy it, we would just quit doing it at a point and then get real jobs and go back to the normal life that we were living before. Or if we did enjoy it, we would find a way to sustain the lifestyle going forward, finding jobs seasonally or remote work or what have you. And that's actually the situation that we're in now. As we said, we've been in this for over 3 years now, so we did end up finding out that we really enjoyed it, and decided that we were going to go down the path of figuring out work along the way so that we could continue to travel full-time and live in our van. So that's kind of the kitchen area. Basically this is our dining room. We've got 2 little bench seats, and each of these cubby seats have tons of storage. So for example, this cushion just lifts up, and then this thing is just chock full of jackets and the shovel, all kinds of crap. So like I said, again, it's all about the gear that we have with us. And another thing that we changed for this van is the heater. So I'm standing on this step here. We didn't have this in our first van because we didn't have this heater. We changed to a propane heater and we really like it. So that's a big change too. Then we have the lagoon table. This is pretty common in vans, so nothing special about that. And then we have more storage in here, but it's a false bottom with a battery bank. So in addition to the 2 200 amp hour batteries that we have, we basically have 400 watts of solar on the roof, and that's a little bit more than we had on our last van as well. We had 300 watts on our last van, and we decided to do a little bit more this time, just kind of for peace of mind and because we had the space. So that goes into our charge controller, which we have the Renogy 40 amp MPPT charge controller, and then we do have an isolator from the main battery, so we're always charging while we're driving as well. So we get power into our batteries from the alternator as well as the solar panels on the roof. We do have a 700 watt inverter. It's a Go Power inverter, and we're really happy with it. A lot of people would say 700 watts isn't really big enough, but we don't run that much other than, you know, camera batteries, drone batteries, charging a laptop. Like I said, we have an immersion blender, but it doesn't pull that much. So we're happy with that. And it's honestly, we were pretty intimidated by running our own electrical for this van, like I said, because we didn't do our first van, but it ended up being pretty cool. It's kind of empowering to like know how everything works. And I would say one of the most intimidating pieces about it was our bed. Our bed is actually on a lift system, so it does go up and down. It's on linear actuator motors. But yeah, we have it this way because we don't always have the bikes in the van with us. So when we don't have the bikes in the van, we can lower it about 8 inches, and then it gives us that much more headroom up top. So that is pretty much everything in the front of the van. The last thing that I'll mention is that we did do the dual max fans on the roof. So we have one in the front and one in the rear. We had that in the last van, and we were really happy with being able to like circulate the air. I would highly recommend doing that for anyone building. Just if you have the roof space, it's going to make a world of difference trying to keep the van cool in hot temperatures. And then we did actually put in quite a few lights. Our last build only had 3 puck lights on the ceiling, and it ended up feeling really dark and cramped. So in the back, you can kind of see the 2 fans and then our reading lights. The fans are just USB plug-ins. The reading lights are wired direct, so those are on a fuse, and they have USB ports on them, so that's what the fans are plugged into. And they're really nice reading lights actually, so you can charge your phone, you can run the light. I was actually pretty impressed. They're expensive, but we like having that back there because it's again, like, you don't have a lot of lighting options in the back of the van. It's just the way that the roof of the Promaster is made. You can't really run a ton of wires past that last frame rail. So we ended up running wires for those reading lights, and that way at night we can turn off our dimmer switches, which are right here, and then we still have reading lights at the back. So we upped the lighting quite a bit. I think that's about all we changed from our first build though. We copied a lot of it as far as the design goes. The bed is on an 80/20 rail platform system, so it's all very lightweight and indestructible basically.
Why did we build a second van? We actually talked about building vans to make a living, basically, for a business. So we said, well, we should probably build a van to see if we can do it, because we didn't have any prior skills per se. It was all new to us, and it's like electrical. I was super scared of doing the electrical, and we just researched forever. And then finally just did it, and we pre-tested everything. All the wires, we just connected them up before they were even in the walls. And then we did it a second time, and then we closed them in. So we built this one out with the thought that if we enjoyed it and we wanted to do it, we would sell maybe 1 or 2 a year, and that would fund the entire year. We pretty much figured out that we don't want to build vans for a living in the process of this one. So the thought is that we may, and we don't know, we'll have to figure it out, but we may do a van every couple of years, you know, put some miles on it, sell it, and always have a fresh van basically. But to be determined, because it's a lot of work if you build one. Yeah.
But we're honestly, I don't want to sound like braggadocious, but I'm pretty darn proud of how this van turned out, and the fact that we did it and it's like holding together is pretty impressive.
So yeah, let's talk about the outside a little bit. So we carry a motorcycle with us on our motor tote carrier, and if you guys want to get a discount on one of these, go to motortote.com/drifterjourney and put in your email and you'll get a discount at checkout. On the right here we have 500-pound slider. Comes all the way out, and then we purchased a bunch of these plastic totes from Remington, actually, and they fit perfect in here. And then we just have them all labeled. So we got fishing and kayaks and backpacking gear, bike gear, climbing, all kinds of stuff. So yeah, for our water system, we have a 10-gallon onboard tank, and then we carry additional jerry cans. So we have normally with us, there's one inside, another drinking water one, and then another one for our shower water, which is currently sitting outside at camp here. And then we just fill those up around town with a 2-stage filter. So over on the other side here, we have our mountain bike tray. So 2 mountain bikes slide out, super easy to get in and out of. And then just a bunch of random junk in between because we live in here all the time. And then off on the side here, we got the camp chairs, table, and a bug net for Alaska. It's like a tent with just screened in. That's pretty much it on the garage. It's kind of a mess trying to put surfboards inside, so that was a requirement for this build. Also with the ladder, we can actually get up and clean the solar panels. It was kind of a pain in the butt on the last van, so surf rack and holds 2 boards. It works out great. So yeah, the bike we carry with us is actually a 2018 TW200. They're a little fat tire bike, super slow, but it gets like 75 miles to the gallon, and we can use it to go get groceries. We got a little bin on the back here, or if we can't get to a hot spring, this thing will get there. So it pretty much takes us anywhere that the van won't get, or if we want to save camp, we can run into town with this. I'm gonna go get some ice cream here in a minute on it while this gets wrapped up. But yeah, it's great to have it with us. It's really fun to mess around on, and that's about it. Cool. For us, it's always been about alternative living. So, you know, trying to live with less and having more freedom. And now that we've been living in the van, we know that we don't want to go back to, I call them real jobs. We don't go back to real jobs if we can avoid it. So we want to figure out how to keep sustaining this lifestyle. But we also know, being that we're at 3 years, we've been looking at property at this point. We kind of want to move into the homesteading type of idea next. So we're looking for land currently. I think the next phase would be kind of a combo of staying in one place for part of the year and then traveling the other part of the year. Because, you know, it is kind of funky not having a home base.
So like Greg mentioned, we don't ever really want to go back to real like corporate jobs if we don't have to. thankfully, before we quit our jobs, we tried to do our best to plan ahead financially. So we have our retirement set aside already. And what that means is that we just have to figure out a way to sustain our living costs for the next 20-25 years. So we checked that a lot, and essentially that is our nest egg. And we saved really hard to build that. We also sold our house to build that, so we're completely homeless, like Greg said. And that is all in the market right now. We had access to a financial advisor through our last jobs, and he gave us some advice on which mutual funds to go into and how to keep them balanced over time. So that is what we do every year. We figure out, which ones are growing, which ones are kind of plateauing, and then rebalance them every year. As far as sustaining this lifestyle goes, initially it was just kind of a little bit of a side hustle plus seasonal work. So Greg has tuned skis for a really long time, and his cousin owns a ski shop in Encinitas, which is just north of San Diego, California. So he works about 4 months of the year as a ski tuning tech in the ski shop, which actually works out really well because San Diego is not a bad place to spend the winter. He likes to surf, so so we're kind of always eyeing up the horizon for remote work and how we can cover our annual expenses. And I just got a job as a remote editor for Rootless Living magazine, and essentially it's part-time. It fits my schedule. I coordinate all the articles going into each issue, and the nice thing about it is that it's a magazine written by nomads for nomads. So it's created by nomads. Like, my bosses live full-time in their fifth wheel, so it's really cool to be part of that community. We've been in that community this whole time, but now I'm even like helping prop that community up even more. I'm really enjoying it, and it's definitely helping cover the gap. So that might turn into something more full-time over time. I think for us, it's just, we're always looking at money as a catalyst to live the lifestyle, and we don't necessarily see it as a pinch point, because if we're earning less, we just try to spend less. If we earn more, sometimes we spend more, but we also try to save. So like I said earlier, we are incredibly frugal, or we try to be, but like, as you can see in the van even, we're willing to spend money where it counts and where it's going to make a difference for our lifestyle and the quality that we have in our lifestyle. So we are drifter.journey on Instagram. You can find us on YouTube at Drifter Journey. Our blog is drifterjourney.com. And we have Amazon affiliates. You can find all of that stuff through our Instagram link tree, and help support us and keep these tires rolling on the road. Yeah,
if you buy from Amazon, buy from amazon.com/drifterjourney. All right, guys, thank you for watching this episode and letting us share our van with you. Make sure to follow along on our journey and watch more of these videos.